Live from Miami, Florida, broadcasting around the world. You're listening to Patriots Perspective with Christi Tasker. Your news behind the government's facade. Don't fall victim to propaganda or spend another 30 days in the tech gulag. Turn off your tell-lie vision and just listen. Hear the most mind-opening hours of your life as we interview whistleblowers and real patriots for uncensored truth. The Commie News Network and Fake Book cannot control the power of Jesus Christ. Therefore, they have no power over us. There aren't enough Vegas strippers to fake check what's coming. Put in your earphones and avoid the tech tyrants. Subscribe to patriotsperspective.com now and see the evidence and action items to help you take back your God-given rights, government, and expose Satan and his demons taking up residence in your community. Be sure to hit the like or rumble button and comment to tell us where you're holding the line.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Patriots Perspective. I am Christi Tasker, the propaganda destructor. And you know what the media loves more than anything is propaganda, propaganda, propaganda. Well, guess what? My guest today, they have really gone to the nth degree trying to destroy her reputation with propaganda, from trying to destroy her business, her life. And I welcome Gina. Gina is a free, pardoned woman now. The last time we interviewed you, you were like, I was going to say, the last time we interviewed you, you were actually getting ready, I think, to go to prison. So
yes,
we've got to talk about all of that because we just aired the episode from 2023 when I started interviewing all of you. Yeah. And by the way, every time we would get a strike online, we would get taken off of Facebook, taken off of YouTube. But we just kept coming back. And guess what? We backed up those videos, or the majority of them, and we are trying to re-air them and replay them simultaneously when we're going to have you on so that our audience can go, wow, okay, they can tune in for part 2. So if you are tuning in right now, we are not going to rehash the entire story. We have about 30 minutes to pick up what happened to Gina, after the insurrection, after Gina went to prison. Tell us about your journey in court, from court to prison. Some of the things you have not been able to speak about now.
Basically, what they did was they had taken me for 2 months. They put me in solitary confinement. I made bail in Los Angeles. This was in 2021, sorry. So I did make bail and I went to go pay the bail. As I went to go pay the bail, they said, surprise, Washington revoked your bail. So from there, they locked me up and I was incarcerated for about 2 months. They lost me. They flew me around the country. There's an article in Politico. It said, where is she? The judge is like, where is she? And the prosecutor's like, we dropped the ball. So I was so sick and so deprived of sunlight, of food, of family, that when I got out, I was let out in Oklahoma on my own recognizance. Now, the attorney who took my case through my family took advantage of my family, took advantage of me during a time of weakness. He had worked for my sister-in-law's cousin. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Point Blank, but he represented one of the bank robbers that was involved in a bank robbery. Okay. And he got him off for maybe 3 years, I believe, and he would have got 30. But he was involved in a murder, armed robbery, and that he got 3 to 5 years. But the thing is, he was not the correct lawyer for me. But everybody was in such a state of panic, and my family didn't hear from me. And they thought they were saying that I was named in the death of a police officer. So my family was panicking. So they asked my son to liquidate my stock, and my son did. And I really do understand that. They were scared because I'm the only one who always had my money saved and put aside for a rainy day. So they gave him $25K. And even when he retained me, he retained me. He never contacted me. He sent me a letter threatening me in jail saying, if you don't want me, you let me know. Your family hired me. It wasn't the family, it was my money. If you don't want me, you let me know. If you broke anything, you're in a lot of trouble. If you damaged anything, you're in even more trouble. If you hurt anybody or had weapons, you're in a lot of trouble. So you better tell the truth and nothing but the truth. So the letter was so negative. I was so scared just by that letter alone. There was a phone number on the letter, and I tried to call. He never once got in touch with me the whole time I was in jail. That was 1 month after being incarcerated. So after 1 month, they got me in the middle of the night, and I thought, hey, maybe this guy got me out. They took me in the middle of the night on first buses, sitting in buses in San Diego, then waiting for the airplane, and then getting on Con Air, getting let out in Texas, only to get back on the plane to go to Oklahoma, where they left me for 1 month.
Wow.
So the judge was like, where is Miss Bisignano? And the prosecutor's like, we dropped the ball. So I needed a hearing so I could get out of there because I had COVID from them flying me around from the stress. But he kept canceling the hearings because he had other things to do. Come to find out, he had just been married to a young girl. He wasn't interested in helping me. He was interested in his new life. And he's like almost in a stage where he would be retired. So he's had such an uppity head and such a high ego that he really didn't even bother. He just wanted the cash. Then I found out he hated Trump. Okay. And so he finally made a hearing for me. And not once did he contact
This is your
me.
attorney. This is your attorney that we're speaking about. Because it's almost like you're talking when you're talking about this. It's almost like a judge didn't want to have a hearing. I mean, so here you are in a bind. Your stocks have been emptied. You bought this guy who doesn't even want to show up for you.
No, he never did, Christy.
Wow.
So finally, I get a phone call. You have a hearing with the judge on Friday. I'm like, oh my gosh. He didn't even contact me beforehand to let me know what happened. He never asked me for my side of the story, not one time.
Wow.
So I remember them letting me into this room, and I had my orange jumpsuit on with shackles, and they walked me into the room, and I started to cry, and the U.S. Marshal said, get your tissues ready. You're going down for treason. I go, you're wrong. You're wrong. I'm a mother. I never committed any treason. And then I started to cry, and I told another officer, U.S. Marshal, that what he said, and they said, don't worry about him. He's a liberal. Don't worry about him. You're going home today. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I remember being in a room and seeing the judge. Christy, when I saw the judge, and this time it was a female prosecutor, not the same male prosecutor I had previously. And I remember getting a feeling of warmth and comfort because I said, he looks like a godly judge. Like I felt content with this judge and I wasn't afraid. I was like, I feel like he's a godly man. I didn't think he would be crooked. So he said, Miss Bisignano, what you said was terrible. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'm sorry. That's all I can say. So I remember looking at this attorney for the first time, Chuck Bruto. He looked like a car salesman, short Italian guy, nobody I would ever choose. And he said, Your Honor, she's going to get mental health treatment, going to see a therapist, going to get some therapy. She got brainwashed and she drank the Kool-Aid. She's going to pack up all her belongings, okay, and move to Philadelphia, not once asking me if I wanted to do that or what happened. Why did I do what I did? Why did I say what I said over the megaphone? Not one time. And I remember they let me out that day and I tried to call him. I didn't have a license. I didn't have money. And I only had one layer of clothing. It was freezing cold. So I was in the waiting room when they were checking me out. It took about 6 hours. And I called my friend Kenny. Now, my family didn't want me to talk to any of my friends because they thought perhaps they had played an influence in my life. But this guy, Kenny, didn't. All he ever wanted to do was help me. And he's like, Kenny's like, I'm going to get on Facebook and I'm involved with a Christian group, and I'm going to find out if there's anybody in Oklahoma that could possibly help you. So he got on the group, and a wonderful girl named Rachel Trevino, who was 6 months pregnant at the time, showed up at the jail for me and actually waited a few hours. She said she left and came back pregnant, waiting for me to rescue me. I didn't know this girl from Adam. So finally, Rachel picked me up, said Kenny contacted Margaret. Therefore, Margaret contacted Bonnie. Bonnie contacted Rachel. Rachel took me to her house. There was goats in the house. The dad had a rifle on his shoulder. And I was crying a mess. And they said, girl, you didn't do anything wrong. You stood up for this country. And I'm like, no, I'm so bad. They go, no, you're not. So from there, they said, listen, Miss Bonnie lives in Chickasaw. Miss Bonnie's going to have you come to the house, give you some warm clothing, make you a nice meal, and take care of you. Make sure you get back to Los Angeles safely. So Rachel dropped me off at Miss Bonnie's. Bonnie Fortuna, she was in the Air Force. She's a force to be reckoned, let me tell you. She set up a beautiful room for me. Her son, who was autistic, David, gave up his room. So I remember there were WWE posters in the corner. And I stayed in bed for about 3 days because I was so broken and just very weak. She kept making me soup, bringing me in food. She's like, you got to get up, Gina. You got to get up. You got to. My son needed my license in order to book my trip for me to travel. Mm-hmm. So I shipped him he overnighted the license to me, but that didn't get to me until 10 days because there was a terrible storm in Oklahoma. So I stayed with Bonnie for almost 2 weeks. Not once did the attorney contact me. You know, my family did. And I don't blame my family, Christy, because they were in a position where they were being told that I was named in the death of a law enforcement agency, you know, a law enforcement officer. So they were scared for me, and they didn't want to tell me that over the phone either.
Yeah.
They didn't want to implement
it. And a lot of Americans still believe these things that they were told by the propagandist media, that they still believe that some of the J6ers, you know, did assault and beat police officers when there's actually a lot of instances where it's the exact opposite.
Christy, when I went in there and I was in the West Tunnel, the cop had hit me with a baton and I fell into the crowd. I suffocated, and the woman underneath me was Roseanne Boylan, and I don't want anybody to forget, she died that day. She didn't die in vain. And she couldn't get out of the crowd. It was essentially like a sardine can. You couldn't get any air. We were so compacted. So I'm pretty athletic, and I worked my way up from the crowd, and I surfed over to the window. I had found out afterwards that Roseanne died that day underneath because it was hard to work your way up through the crowd. That's when Jake Lang was trying to get the people off of her.
Mm-hmm. Right. And Jake Lang, we were in touch with Jake's dad. They were not wanting to release Jake from the DC gulag. And kept trying to hold him. And we had to have attorneys. And I mean, there's a multitude of people. There's no one person that I think can take responsibility for even getting out, even though he was pardoned. I mean, so that's the
clearly pardoned. It was a broad pardon. Yeah.
A broad pardon, no matter what. I mean, President Trump also pardoned some law enforcement officers, you know, afterwards as well. So, I mean, it's not just a citizen issue. And, you know, I think, Gina, you know, before all of this, you were a beauty salon owner. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I was a single mom. I am a born again Christian, so I lead a quiet life. I've been single. I don't even date for like 16 years. Basically, I just really committed to my Lord and my dedication, you know, to reading my Bible. And I became very involved in politics during COVID. So I was just working for 15 years, and I built up a very successful business. And when COVID hit, Christy, and then the government was telling the healthy people that couldn't leave their house, they couldn't go out and work. That's when I'm like, I can't just sit here. Like, I need to take a stand. I need to have my voice heard. I need to do something. So I got involved in the local Republican group, in Beverly Hills Republican group. And from there, I met Dr. Simone Gold, and she said, listen, if you want your voices to be heard, protesting is the only way. And we have that First Amendment right. And that's what led me to going to the Trump rallies on Saturday and then meeting a model influencer asking me, hey, would you like to go to Washington? You're quite a force, and we would like to have you go to Washington in support of President Trump. Because, of course, we know I support the president. So she said, and also we would like to have you invite some friends. So I invited about 20 friends with me, and that was in November. And that was the Stop the Steal rally. And I loved it. And I had such a great time. I made so many friends. I ended up going back in December. That was the MAGA Million Man March. Remember the MAGA Million?
Yeah. And there was so many.
Yeah. And then again in January, I had been sick with COVID, and I was like, no, I'm not going to go again in January because we had the election stolen from us. I was just not feeling good during that time. And I remember reading on Twitter or Facebook, January 6th, be there, it'll be wild. And I'm like, when I heard President Trump, when I read his words, I was like, I'll be there. I'm like, okay, I got to get out of this slump. I remember they wouldn't let us leave our house. And I remember them saying after 11 days, you can. So it was 11 days and I was free to travel. And January 6th, I got a ticket and I went by myself and I stayed at the Hampton Inn. And that's what led me to January 6th.
Yeah. And I mean, just, because a lot of people think that, either you were a paid operative or that, someone had to have coerced people. I mean, during a time of lockdown, you don't really have to coerce people to do a lot because, especially when a government, especially when the local government, I should say, is telling you that you need to stay in, your salon needs to be closed. The activators start to activate and you realize, holy crap, this is communism 101.
Right.
And
Marxism 100%.
Yeah, Marxism, absolutely. So whatever, and being a fascist. I mean, so it's whatever the left has done is exactly what has been done to us. It is actually called, let me actually make sure people know this because this is a very interesting read if you have not already read it. It is called Rules for Radicals.
Radicals. Loved it.
It's the Saul Alinsky Rules for Radicals playbook. It always accuse your opponent of what you yourself did.
That's what Obama fashioned himself around. And also Saul Alinsky, Kamala Harris.
Yes.
Okay.
And Hillary Clinton's mentor. That was their mentor.
Saul Alinsky.
Yep, exactly. So even now, in the GOPs, from what I hear, there are a lot of people from the Hillary Clinton camp that are utilizing these rules for radicals. I mean, they are literally still using them to this day, to this very hour. So It is hard to know who to trust, what to trust.
Can you imagine the trajectory of this country had Camilla been? So, well, we know she wasn't elected; she was selected.
Right.
If the cheating prevailed this time, can you imagine the trajectory of this country? I would go to jail. It wouldn't matter to me. That's why I took the chance of keep delaying.
I think we would all be there anyway. I mean, realistically, as we would all be there anyway, because they find a way to put every voice, no matter what color your skin is. They first of all go for race and gender. And then it's based on your belief, whether it's your religious belief, your political belief. And I do believe this was all a test. And I do believe that they still have operatives out there trying to divide and conquer within either the party or based on values. It's like, okay, why hasn't, there being unity within a specific party. I can't, they see past this playbook. I mean, when we know that it exists, the rules
It's
were
the
out of.
woke ideology. I don't think there's any reaching those people.
What we have to do is we have to, as regular citizens, read the book, know who wrote it, who made these people, and start to realize, like, hey, when you hear something, you may have to do a little bit of research. You may have to ask the person themselves the question of, hey, did you do this, this, and this? Because, I mean, there are things, there are people online being defamed that are their reputations being scarred. They're being bullied. They are being harassed. And it's a constant don't give up, because these people are, we're the ones with the cameras. We are the ones that are smart enough to cameras with us. And we do tell what we've done because we have nothing to hide.
Nothing to hide.
Yeah, there's nothing to hide here.
Christi, a lot of people they would. I remember when I did get out of jail, people were calling me names, and this girl Shiva got online. She was supposed to be a patriot, but she didn't want to go to January 6th because she said that she had her own rally. She tells everybody now that the Holy Spirit, she's a charismatic, and she thinks that like she has control and she has the power. She doesn't give the Lord any of the credit. She takes it upon herself and said, the Holy Spirit told me. And I'm like, no, you didn't go because you didn't have the money and you wanted to watch a rally here. So she went online saying she's such a see you next Tuesday. She spoke with the feds. Of course I'm going to speak with the feds. I had 25 FBI agents surrounding me. I have nothing to hide. Why wouldn't I talk to the feds? What did I have that could possibly ever harm anybody? We went there to use our First Amendment. We were assaulted from the moment they opened those doors. I have nothing to hide.
Yeah.
They did try to brainwash me, though, and they tried to break me down. And they told me if I testify, they subpoenaed me. I said, I'm not going to testify. They go, if you don't, you go to jail. So when I went up on that stand, I made it clear that the defendant, was a good citizen. Ed Battalion, he was trying to grab people off the window, prevent people from breaking windows. And he wanted to go to law enforcement to get ahead of the game. He said, we need to contact FBI and tell them about all the people in the crowd that were assaulting us. I was bear sprayed like 6 times that day.
Yeah. And I mean, so if there is an assault, and that's the case. I mean, you can even hear a lot of the people that were accused. I was actually reading because I was going through the list of people that are still remaining in jail as of yesterday. I want to say around 12 or 2 o'clock yesterday. There was a guy named Jason Tasker, and I was trying to read through his case. Obviously, it caught my eye because it's my last name. I mean, I have no relations with him. I don't know who he is. But when I was reading his case, it's like there was photographs that don't even look like him. They're saying like he changed his jacket, he did this, but no matter what, there are 4 misdemeanors and the guy's been in jail for like 4 years.
That makes no sense.
It's like, okay, so what else did he do? I'm like looking, going, what else did he do? Because even if he had 4 misdemeanors, he would have served out every single, because you can only have a misdemeanor. The maximum jail time is 364 days per misdemeanor. So if he served 4 years, he's already overserved.
Wow.
So I have a question regarding that. I don't know everything about his. I mean, I'm just saying, I just read the brief that was signed by the judge, because that's what they prosecuted him on. Oh, is that your baby?
What about Jeremy Brown? A Purple Heart, Green Beret?
Yeah.
He didn't do anything either. They actually were trying to get him to turn on the Patriots, and he wore a wire and he reported them. They were trying to get him, infiltrate him and have him turn on President
he did
Trump.
the opposite. Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
he did the opposite. Yeah, exactly. And
they tried to bully me.
We've only got like 5 more minutes. So I want to make sure that people know. So after they transported you around everywhere, they literally lose you.
Yes.
you end up going through, you told me that tell people what they did when they lost you. They were flying you through the air. Talk a little bit about that.
So I remember first, when they initially got me, I thought, oh, I'm going home. We just paid this huge retainer for this attorney. But no, he canceled the hearings because he was busy. So I never got in front of a judge. So they took me in the middle of the night and I'm like, where am I going? They're like, it's a surprise. And I remember crying, and one of the gentlemen said, don't cry. You're going to be transported to Washington. And I'm like, Washington, so far from home. And they're like, it's good. Don't worry, because you're going to get closer to the truth. It's closer to the end, and it's closer to the truth. And just hang in there and trust in God. You have faith in God. Just trust in the Lord. Without Psalm 91 going through my head and without my faith, I probably would have killed myself. I would have, during all the persecution afterwards as well. And I would have been in jail had I not fired my attorney and delay by letting the judge know I was under extreme pressure, and they bullied me into telling lies that I did not tell. They wanted me to.
And did the attorney ever give any of your retainer back? Did you ever get any of your retainer?
He took $75,000 cash because he didn't accept credit cards. And essentially I'm down to nothing now. So I would love to rebuild myself. I've been on house arrest, home detainment for 4 years. I just cut my ankle monitor off yesterday.
Wow.
And I could not leave my house unless I had permission from my PO officer, and he saw an email from a client requesting me. And I could only go to the office on South Beverly. So for 4 years, I've had like no social life, no parties, no friends anymore, because nobody wanted to hang out because I couldn't do anything.
Right. Well, you couldn't do anything.
I have no friends.
Well, and a lot of people are also scared to be around people that they think are arrested or convicted of anything, or especially, and they're also afraid to ask questions. So I would say, what do you think the public should be doing right now? I mean, what would you like, as a J6er, instead of, before somebody makes a snide remark, would you rather them just ask you a question so that you could respond?
Absolutely. And especially people, my own peers, accusing me of being an operative or squealing on others. I never once, all I did was tell the truth. They go through your pictures. They put you in a room for 6 hours. Trust in the Lord. Like my trust is in the Lord, and everything I do, I pray. And I only do things if I feel that it would represent him, my Father in heaven. So I think that they need to really do some research, look into Pizzagate, because that's really what got me into this. Read some history about all the things that President Trump has done for the minorities. And then just, again, take a look around. Look at the inflation during Biden's, look at the open borders, Laken Riley, God rest her soul, the murders, the blood on Joe Biden's hands, that little 12-year-old Jocelyn during their catch and release, how they captured the Venezuelan gang members. Take a look at some stories about what happened during this terrible Biden regime before you start blaming us for wanting to take a stand against a tyrannical government. And that's all we did, was practice our First Amendment right. And ask me questions.
Let me ask you this, Gina. Did you ever hit anybody or anything? Let's just get that out, because you're pardoned. You never hit anybody, you never broke a window, you never held a billy club, you just held the megaphone, right?
Yeah. Actually, somebody gave me the megaphone. Okay. And they said they just shot and killed a girl, and the boys, nobody wants to leave. That's when I said, we need strong, angry patriots. We need gas masks. We need weapons for protection. And I said that because I was scared. We were running around like we were afraid for our lives. And I said that because he said, tell them we need weapons. But I said for protection, to protect ourselves.
Yeah, because you didn't have, you were not open carrying or anything like that.
No.
You didn't have any weapons or anything on you.
No.
Okay. That's something that's like a big myth out there, that you already had weapons, you had already hit someone.
They said that I had a gun, and I never had a gun. I had a gun in a safe in my house that feds took out and took pictures of. Never took that to Washington.
Okay, and then as far as let me think of what else. Are there any other rumors that you want to put to rest?
Well, there's not really, I mean, they can clearly see, like, even if they read the court transcripts, I delayed. I was in trial and I was looking at 10 years starting January 31st. I don't believe my judge would have given me 10 years, but I was definitely going to serve at least a percentage of that time.
What were your counts exactly? What were your counts?
I had 1512, which was dropped by the Supreme Court, trying to stop an election proceeding, treason. And then I had destruction of government property because I was standing next to somebody who broke a window.
Okay. And did you know that?
And then I had 9. No. And then I had 9.
Let's just get this out. Did you plan to stand next to that person?
Oh, no.
Did you plan to stand next to the window?
No, I had to go by the window. I couldn't breathe. I was forced out of the tunnel. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, but those are things that people, there is no plan, like in something like that, there is no exact plan. And there's just chaos because there are people in the crowd that were causing chaos. And it's interesting to see, we've not yet seen a J6er that was causing the chaos. We've only seen really peaceful protesters among the J6ers. Listen, I'm still looking for the people who actually caused the chaos. Because,
right. What about the pipe bomber?
Right. The pipe bomber is missing. The footage is missing. What about the guy
who handed me the megaphone? What about the guy who sprayed me in the face with the bear spray? I don't see any of these people being held. Right.
So that's something I want to leave people with. Just use your common sense.
Right. We are the party of common sense.
Yep. We have to have common sense. We have to ask questions. And Gina, I'm just going to say people, they're so short on time. They don't have time to read transcripts, stuff like that. I wish that they did. I wish they spent more time reading court transcripts than they did actually reading the news. They would be doing us all a favor. So listen, Gina, we are going to have to sign off now. I have an interview coming up with Dr.
I'm so glad we were able to get some time in together.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, listen, God bless you. I'm definitely going to make sure that I have you back on. I'd love to have you back on as a co-host with some of the other J6.
You're such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Christi. You're such a sweet person.
I've connected with you. My heart goes out to you.
I love you too.
I would have been right there with you had I
know.
Been able to.
I'm a Miami native. So I come here a lot.
Well, I'll definitely want to see you before you leave.
I would love that. All right, beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Remember, take action. Take action. Don't let big tech win. Share this video with a friend now. Most importantly, do unto others as you would have others do unto you.